the biggest entrepreneur platform on the planet. This is Business Rockstars.
This is Business Rockstars. I'm Brittany Whitney, and my guest today is Stephen Amato, CEO of Contend. Stephen, thanks for joining us today. So Stephen, thanks for joining us today. Tell our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, Brittany. Nice to meet you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk. My entrepreneurial journey is not a normal one. I grew up in a working class town in Connecticut. Both my parents worked in the same factory, met there, and their entire lives spent in the same factory. So what I learned from Connecticut was grit and kind of what work is. And I took that at 17 and went to New York City, doing something that no one in my town does, which is gonna go and immerse myself in the theater, because that was really interesting to me. So I went there at 17 and kind of worked in a bodega and kind of immersed myself in the world of theater for about 10 years. And doing that in New York City, I learned how to have a global mindset, the diversity of thinking. I learned, I opened 2 or 3 theater companies. I learned about business, about how to drive traffic to a show. I learned about, a lot of things from New York. But most importantly, I learned when to leave. That was probably the best thing that I got from New York, was you kind of tap out. So about 10 years into it, I left and went to LA, not knowing anyone and still broke. Kind of went and basically tried to get into the entertainment industry, and kind of was doing that, took my little plays that I had written and shopped them around and got hired on a TV show, and then realized really quickly that the entire television industry was run by brands. And that was like a kind of a pivotal moment in my life where I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to go and understand how brands tell stories. So that was like way back. And I was lucky enough to get hired at a very early company called Deutsch. It was a big New York agency, but at the time I thought it was a bank. I thought it was a German bank. I didn't know, but I got hired. And in short form, I was on a team that brought in a very large account. And I realized that ideas, concepts, the power of thinking, and group teamwork was really a kind of something I really wanted to focus in on. So spent a year there, and then I got hired at a place called Chiat/Day, and I worked. That's really where it kind of was my education. I worked for Apple, PlayStation, Nissan, and for 4 or 5 years, I kind of really understood, what to do, because I was working on the masters of that craft. And I also realized what I didn't want to do, which was create things that people actually didn't want to watch. So I tried to start an entertainment division within Omnicom, with a group of like a band of brothers and sisters. And we tried to do that. And we were told, really honestly, that's like, we make way too much money on traditional media to do that. So in 2004, I left and I started a company called Omelette, which I founded with 4 people. And I ran as a president for 10 years. It's still going, very proud of Omelette. It's a hybrid, really cool agency based in Culver City. And you're an entrepreneur when you basically leave your own company and you start another company. That's when you're like,
yeah.
That's. And so I left in 2014 to start Contend, which is kind of where I'm sitting now. And basically from there, 2 years into it, we had 3 offers to acquire the company. We had a really clear focus. We took one of the offers to go. And in March of this year, I ended up buying the company back. And we're back to being independent. So in the middle of everything, we're back. And it's been an incredible journey from working class Connecticut to Los Angeles. That's my story.
I can't wait to dive in more about kind of reacquiring the company, but let's just back up a little bit. So what is Contend for those who are not familiar?
Yeah, so Contend is a next-gen kind of content studio. We use audience intelligence to kind of create, produce, and distribute content for big brands, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, but not just content to go in front of people, but content that actually drives a result. So Contend is content with an end game. So, and it's really really at its heart is a great bunch of humans working with technology to create stuff that people actually want to experience. That's like honestly what it is.
Yeah. And what inspired you to kind of start this company? As you said, you were at Omelette before, another company that you co-founded. So what inspired you to kind of break away and start Contend?
Humans. Really, to be honest, like thinking back to my days in the theater, I really have been driven by this idea of creating stuff that people actually want to have, creating meaningful experiences for people, creating stuff that makes people's lives better. And I really wanted to do that using a business objective. So I really was not settled on creating stuff that stood between people and the experiences they wanted to be having. I wanted to create the experiences they want to be having and get them to do something as an action. So that's been like a myopic focus, I think, my entire life.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people who want to start a business get so overwhelmed with taking that first step, right? So they have this great idea, they just don't know how to execute. What was one of the first steps you took, really starting any company that you've started? Kind of what's that first step that kind of propelled your career?
Whew, well, realizing kind of, I'm a weird one because I had a great career at Chiat. Like I was really in a wonderful position and they were incredible to work with. And I have so much respect for them. But I asked myself, honestly, what did I want to leave behind in terms of a legacy? And what did I want? What was success for me? And I realized no matter what I did at Chiat I could never get to what I wanted to achieve in terms of, so that's when you're like, okay, well, I need to go do something that goes after kind of what's important to you. And that basically I got a promotion, had a child, bought a house, and quit my job.
Yeah.
To start Omelette. And it was in that situation kind of crazy, but it made perfect sense to me. And that is, as an entrepreneur, it doesn't need to make sense to anyone but you.
Right.
That's really important.
That is important. And I love your background because you work with some of the biggest brands and you have a high school degree.
Yeah.
So many people think they need a college degree or a master's, or, they need MBA to kind of start a business. So tell us, or for someone who's listening who has a high school degree or maybe is just trying to start on their own and they think they need more, tell us kind of your experience with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And to anyone that's out there, like, this is a wonderful thing. Because a lot of times right now, people's experience is a liability because of, especially in our industry, the more you know, the experience you have based on how fast things are changing, the most critical thing is having curiosity and being driven when you're not at work to think about things, to consider things, to ask questions, to research on your own. Like, it's not about what somebody's teaching you, it's about what knowledge you can go gather. And that is more important than anything. That's what drives, I think, our company forward. And we do have a lot of brilliant people here that are very well educated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. You could go to the local library to start and just check out a book on business. And there's so many like online courses you can take. You can really kind of teach yourself.
Well, I mean, what are you learning, right? Like right now, what are you learning? Like, if I were, my advice to anyone that's out there, go learn about the blockchain. Like right now, go learn about how to reintroduce NFTs in a new way to, like, there's so much happening.
It's so true.
That they're not going to teach. Who's teaching this?
Right. No, it's so true. You really need to be self-taught.
Yeah.
So let's kind of dive into the reacquisition. So at one point, your company was acquired by a bigger holding company. Tell us how the process of kind of reacquiring your company and how you regained your company's independence, because I'm sure that was kind of an interesting story.
It was, and it was, we had a great, relationship in order to do that. To make having an amicable split is really hard to do because usually there's massive business objectives at play. And but we had, we were working with really, really sophisticated people on the other side, and we were able to make a really good case for why it makes sense for kind of where they were going versus where we were going. And we kind of had a vision split, and we said, hey, this is where we're going, this is where we're going. We can coexist. And if we hear the problems that might arise, let's just get to that in a contract. And they didn't need to do it, but they're a very honorable company, and they let us go. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful process. I got nothing but glorious things to say about them.
So what does that look like? I'm not familiar with like companies that reacquire. Is there just a lot of paperwork? Like, do you just kind of get back into it? Are people from the old team now onto this team?
Yeah. So good question. The process for reacquiring yourself really comes down to defining who you are versus who the company that you're buying yourself back from is. So, and there is a human being org split. Then there is kind of like a capability split. Then there's a client split. And sometimes you have to share a client. But it comes down to very difficult, contractual things around clients and understanding and how we talk about it in terms of to our people, and just getting everything correct and on the same page is critical to a reacquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about a fear of failure, because a lot of entrepreneurs, people who want to start, grow, or fund a business, let that fear of failure really get in the way of actually pursuing their dreams. Was there a point in your career where you were like, shoot, I really think I'm actually going to fail at this? Or kind of how do you overcome that self-doubt?
You never overcome. Like, fear is my motivator. Right? What you do is you reposition fear as your asset. So if I don't feel fear, I'm more afraid, because I've learned that behind fear is value, and that it becomes almost like a lighthouse to me. And that fear is the thing that I'm like, okay, there it is again. Oh, I hate the way it feels, but it becomes a great motivator. That's where I have to go, as opposed to retreat from. It's not easy, and it still hurts, but it's a learned behavior that everyone can learn. It's so hard.
It's true. You kind of just have to stand up and see what happens.
Yeah, really. And you have to be okay with failing. And it's so hard to say that, because failure sucks and it hurts and it's painful, and and people are let down, but it's a part of what we're doing here as entrepreneurs. Like, if you don't rip new muscle, you're not growing.
And oftentimes after a failure or 2 or 3 or 4, something great happens.
Absolutely. Well, you can't get to the great thing without all of that. I mean, it's just a cliche, right? But
right.
It's true. It's a cliche for a reason.
So let's kind of dive in. Why do brands need to get ready for experiences in the 3D and kind of beyond?
Well, brands need to get ready for where humanity's going. Mm-hmm. So when you think about humans, like, everything's changed. Like, this pandemic has really adjusted people's perspectives on foundational things like family, shopping, travel, you name it. I mean, money, everything. So as a brand, you really need to understand kind of what people are feeling. So, and how to connect with people in a way that's meaningful, because you can't just shove your value proposition down and say, hey, my product's better than your product in this way, and expect this current state of humanity to care, right, let alone go out and, buy. So whereas, like, you need to start thinking about dimensionalizing your product beyond just what you sell, into why you sell it, creating ways to intersect in ways that you just haven't thought about yet.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And more than ever, companies and people need to think, how can I be innovative, and how can I kind of propel my brand to the next step?
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about what's in your entrepreneurial toolbox. I like to say this is kind of like a toolkit for success, whether it's 3 practices you do daily, or an app that you can't live without, or time blocking. What's kind of in your toolbox that you think attributes to your daily success?
I mean,
you have 5 children, so you're busy.
I'm busy. Well, this is critical. I'll start with taking care of yourself. Like it's that oxygen metaphor, that oxygen's, like you have to take care of yourself, knowing what that really means. So whether it's exercise or just something that's time for you. And even if you don't have time, I don't have time, but you got to make time. You got to make time. So, and then there's patience. It's on an app. It's not, it's just pure. And you have to have patience. You have to have grit. Sorry. Please just go. If you can be an employee, please just go be an employee.
Yeah.
Don't do this.
It's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier because it takes a tremendous amount of grit. And what that means is just building bridges into fog. And if you're still building bridges but you don't know where you're going, and it is not fun. Sometimes knowing where your profitability is, a lot of people like just know where your business is, knowing that someday you will make money. That's really important. And then I think the most important is the team, the people you choose to spend the time with, your partners. Can't underestimate that in your toolbox, getting that right.
That is very true. It's a marriage.
It really is on all levels, no matter whoever they are, like everyone you're interfacing with and over time is really a marriage.
So true. If you could go back to when you were first starting out, what's kind of one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I can go back when I was first starting out and give myself some advice. There's a great quote that I remember reading later in my experience about, it was just a series of things that I needed to know about the inevitabilities of success. And it was like, you will feel pain, you will lose friends, your family will discourage you. And it was like all of these incredible rules of success. And then at the end of it, it just says, it'll all be worth it. And I think you really will lose friends. You really will be discouraged by everyone. People will stop believing in you. Like there's a lot of headwinds, but it's worth it.
It is. It totally is.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure speaking with you. Where can people learn more about you, and where can people learn more about Contend?
Yeah. So you can learn more about Contend at contendco.com, contendco.com. And yeah, we're always on, and looking forward to a very interesting future.
And actually, my last question is, where do you see Contend in the next 5, 10, however many years?
Well, we're really focusing on building new dimensions for brands. We are really interested in kind of what that means, whether it's multiverse or whatever the heck it's going to be. This idea of extending stories into a 3D world is kind of where we're at. So we're going to be doing some very, very interesting stuff, whether we're creating IP ourselves, creating new technologies ourselves, or working with brands to co-create. It's going to be a very interesting journey for us, and I feel like we're very well positioned for it. So very fortunate about that. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, amazing. I can't wait to see where you guys are and kind of follow your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you, Brittany.